Everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. It's going to be all about English tenses.
Ooh, tenses.
Yeah, I know. It might not sound like the most exciting topic at
Right.
first glance,
Yeah.
but actually they're super fascinating, and they're like a secret code to really good communication in English.
It's true.
Like you can really make your words come alive.
Yeah.
And we have two great sources here,
Yes.
which have all these charts
Mm-hmm.
and examples and even some quizzes.
Yes. For all you visual learners out there.
Perfect for visual learners.
Yeah.
So by the end, you'll understand all 12 main tenses in English, and you'll be able to use them.
Confidently.
Yeah, confidently. No more second guessing.
That's right.
So let's rewind to the beginning.
Okay.
What actually are tenses?
Well, they're verbs that tell us when something happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're like signposts in a sentence. They guide us through time.
For signposts. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh.
So mastering them is really important if you want to communicate clearly. Because if you're telling a story and your tenses are all over the place,
Right.
it's going to be confusing for the listener.
Yeah. It's like a recipe with the steps all out of order.
Exactly. So let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
We all know past, present, and future right,
Right.
the big three.
Yes.
But did you know that each of these tenses actually breaks down into 4 subtypes?
That's right. We have the simple continuous perfect and perfect continuous.
I've got to admit, those last two, perfect and perfect continuous,
Yeah.
always make me a little bit nervous.
I understand. But they're just tools to help you add more detail to your sentences.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready to tackle them.
Okay.
Let's start with the past.
Okay.
Because it's already happened, it might be less intimidating.
Sure. So we'll start with the simple past tense.
Okay.
This one tells us about actions that started and finished in the past.
Okay.
For example, I walked to work yesterday.
Okay, so it's like a snapshot of the past.
Exactly.
Right.
Now imagine you want to describe something that was happening during that walk.
Ooh.
That's where the past continuous comes in.
Okay.
For example, I was walking to work when I saw a hot air balloon.
Okay, so it's like pressing record on that moment
Exactly.
while you were walking.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for the perfect tenses, what makes them so special?
Well, the past perfect is all about showing one action happened before another action in the past.
So it's like a timeline within the past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For example, I had already finished my coffee before my friend arrived.
So you're saying which action came first?
Exactly. And if you want to emphasize how long something was happening, you would use the past perfect continuous.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, I had been working on this puzzle for hours when suddenly the power went out.
Oh, so you're really emphasizing that you were doing it for a long time
Exactly.
before something else happened.
Yes.
Okay, it's like adding special effects
Yes.
to a movie.
It is.
You know what's interesting, though? I'm realizing I think I've messed up tenses before, and it's caused some pretty funny misunderstandings.
Oh, I bet you have.
Yeah. Like one time I was traveling in Italy,
Yeah, okay.
and I tried to order a coffee. And I thought I was saying, I want a coffee.
Right.
But I think I mixed up the tenses. And I actually said I wanted a coffee yesterday.
Oh, no.
The barista looked at me like I was crazy.
Oh, my goodness.
And I had to use a lot of hand gestures
I can only
to
imagine.
finally get my caffeine fix.
Yes, a small slip-up with tenses can have big real-world consequences.
Definitely learned my lesson after that.
Good.
So we've only just talked about the past tenses.
That's true.
We still have the present and the future to explore.
We do.
But I think this is a good place to take a little break.
I agree.
Let our listeners digest everything we've talked about so far.
Yeah, take a moment. Maybe try forming a few sentences with those past tenses. We'll be back soon to tackle the present and future tenses.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive. I hope you had a chance to practice those past tenses. We're going to shift gears now and talk about the present.
Ooh, the present. It's happening all around us.
Exactly. And just like with the past, we have a whole bunch of present tenses
Okay.
to help us express ourselves.
Let's start with the simple present.
Okay.
It feels like we use that one all the time.
Right. It's our go-to tense for talking about habits, routines,
Mm-hmm.
facts, general truths like the earth revolves around the sun.
Facts.
Yes, I drink tea every morning.
Yeah. It's like the foundation of our everyday conversations.
Yes, it is.
But what if we want to zoom in on something that's happening right now?
Right now. That's where the present continuous comes in.
Okay.
Think of it like a video camera capturing the action
yeah.
as it unfolds.
So like I am recording a podcast
Exactly.
as we speak.
Okay. Now let's move on to the present perfect tense.
Okay.
This one can be a little tricky.
Right.
but it's incredibly useful. It connects the past to the present.
I'm ready. What's the secret?
The secret is that the present perfect tense is all about actions that happened at some point in the past, but they still have relevance to the present. So, for example, you could say, I have visited Paris 3 times. We don't know exactly when those visits happened,
Right.
but the experience of visiting Paris is still part of who I am today.
So it's not just about what happened, but how that past experience shapes who you are now.
Exactly.
It's like, I have learned so much from this deep dive.
Yes, perfect example.
Okay.
Now, for the last tense in our present lineup, we have the present perfect continuous.
Okay, I'm picturing a timeline
Okay.
in my head. Starting in the past, going into the present, and kind of emphasizing that it's still going on.
Exactly. It's like saying, I have been studying English for 5 years.
So you started in the past, you're still doing it now.
Yes, and you're highlighting that continuous effort.
I have a feeling a lot of people get present perfect and present perfect continuous mixed up.
You are absolutely right. They do seem very similar, but there's a subtle difference in emphasis. The present perfect emphasizes completion. You've done the thing. It's part of your story. Present perfect continuous emphasizes duration. You've been doing the thing, and you might still be doing it now.
Okay, so let's say I'm applying for a job, and it requires that I speak Spanish.
Okay.
Which tense would I use?
That's a great question. If you say, I have studied Spanish for 5 years,
Okay.
it implies that you've completed maybe like a course of study,
Right.
and you might not be actively learning anymore.
But if I say, I have been studying Spanish for 5 years?
That suggests that you're still engaged in the process. You're probably more fluent.
I like that.
You're dedicated, and you're still improving.
So choosing the right tense can really change how you present yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm feeling pretty confident about these present tenses.
Good.
What about when we want to talk about the future? How do we express things that haven't happened yet?
That brings us to the future tenses.
Okay.
And you're right. There's a certain excitement in talking about what's to come.
It's like we're writing the next chapter.
Exactly. Let's start with the most straightforward one, the simple future tense.
Okay.
This is our go-to for expressing actions that will happen in the future. Simple. I will go to the grocery store later.
Yeah, just a statement of intent.
Yes. Now, what if you want to highlight that an action will be in progress at a specific time in the future?
Ooh, a sneak peek into the future.
Exactly. That's where the future continuous comes in.
Okay.
For example, at this time tomorrow, I will be flying to London.
Wow, that sounds very nice.
Yeah.
At this time tomorrow, we'll probably be brainstorming new podcast ideas.
Sounds good.
Okay, what about the future perfect tense?
The future perfect tense, it might sound complex,
Yeah.
but it's all about setting deadlines in the future. Like, by the end of the week, I will have finished writing this report.
So you're not just saying you'll finish it, you're saying you'll finish it by a certain time.
By a certain time. Exactly.
Okay. I like how tenses can help us set goals.
It's like a roadmap
Okay.
for the future. Now, for the final tense in our future lineup, we have the future perfect continuous.
Bring it on.
This one combines duration and completion in the future.
Okay.
It's used to express an action that will be ongoing up until a specific point in the future.
Okay, let me try this one out. By next year, I will have been hosting this podcast for 4 years.
Perfect. You've got it.
Wow.
You're highlighting the ongoing effort and dedication
Okay.
leading up to that future milestone.
I'm feeling pretty accomplished,
Well-
even though we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yes.
It's amazing how these 12 tenses, once you break them down, they actually make so much sense.
They do. It's remarkable how much we can convey just by changing the form of a verb.
It's like we've unlocked a secret language code,
Yes.
but we focused a lot on definitions and examples.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see how this all works in real life.
Yeah, it's one thing to understand the rules, but it's another thing to actually apply them.
Yeah, so what are some common pitfalls that people make with tenses? You know, it's funny. We talk about all these grammar rules like they're set in stone, but in real life, things aren't always so clear.
It's true. Even native English speakers can trip up on tenses sometimes.
Right, especially like when you're telling a story
Yeah.
and you're jumping back and forth between different times.
Exactly.
That's hard to keep it all straight.
Yeah, it really highlights the importance of understanding those subtle differences between the tenses.
Okay, so what are some common pitfalls we should watch out for?
Well, one common mistake is using the wrong tense when we're talking about hypothetical situations.
Oh, okay.
Like you might hear someone say, if I win the lottery, I will buy a new car.
Okay.
But the correct tense there would actually be the simple past. If I won the lottery, I would buy a new car.
So it's all about matching the tense in the if part of the sentence,
Exactly.
but the other part.
Exactly. Another common mistake is mixing up the present perfect and the simple past.
Oh, yeah.
So someone might say, I lived in Paris for 3 years,
Okay.
when they really mean I have lived in Paris for 3 years.
Yeah. So simple past means it's over and done with. But present perfect means it still has some connection to the present.
Exactly. It's like the difference between saying I ate breakfast and I have eaten breakfast.
Yeah.
Sometimes these small changes can really change the meaning of a sentence.
I see.
For instance, let's say you're talking about a book you've read.
Okay.
If you say, I read that book last year,
Okay.
it implies that you're done with it.
Right.
But if you say, I have read that book,
Okay.
it opens the door for further discussion. Maybe you want to recommend it.
So it's all about what you're trying to communicate.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just about following the rules. It's about using the right tense to express yourself.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that different cultures might have different ways of thinking about and expressing time.
That's interesting.
So even though we've been focusing on English tenses, these concepts are relevant to other languages as well.
All right, because all languages have ways of dealing with time.
Exactly. And it can be fascinating to explore those differences. For example, some languages have separate tenses for things that happen in the recent past versus the distant past.
Oh, wow.
Others might not even have a future tense.
Really?
They rely on context and other grammatical tools to talk about the future.
So the language we speak can actually shape how we think about time.
It's a two-way street. Language influences our thoughts, and our thoughts influence our language.
Wow, that's really cool.
Mm.
Well, I'm feeling inspired to learn more about how other cultures express time.
Me too.
But for now, I think we've covered a lot of ground on English tenses. And I have to say, I feel a lot more confident about using them now.
That's great to hear. And just remember, practice makes perfect.
Yes. The more you use them, the more natural they'll become.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right. Mistakes are just part of the learning process.
They are.
So to our listeners out there, embrace the challenge of tenses.
Yeah.
Don't let them intimidate you.
Yeah.
With a little effort, you can really master these time-bending verbs.
And have fun along the way.
And have fun along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of English tenses.
It's a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time for another exciting language adventure.